verify over and over, because if it's true, it's going to be everywhere. And you can either spend your time on each thing and say, well, this proves and this proves, and here's more evidence, or at some point you switch over and you say, hey, okay, there's a college, let's start sightseeing, let's see what's there. And if you get a little more into it, you'll see, oh, there's a lot there, and there's detail there, and there's so much there. So, simple question. Yeah, God gave us the Torah. Okay, a lot of stuff there, I have to do some more research, but I'll humor you, Rabbi, for now. Okay, but that means that if there's a real God and he cares, you should see him all over Jewish history. It should be so, so clear. Yeah, you're right. It should be. And for that we have Rav Gav. That's it. That's the whole thing.
Well, that's a good answer.
That was amazing. Thank you. Okay, good evening all. Spice Show fans, any, I don't know what you call it here, Shunabed, second year, what are these, Shunabedders? All right. I'm okay with the last, for me it makes no difference. I'm just saying for people to be able to see. Can you see the screen okay? You can see it? So keep the lights on. All right. All right, so here's the general rule. If you have been here before and you have seen this presentation, then I have one rule, and that is, don't be that guy. Everyone knows who that guy is, right? I saw it already. We hate you. Keep it down. Okay? By way of introduction, for those unfamiliar, my name is Gabriel Friedman, a.k.a. Rav Gav, originally from a place called Woodmere, New York. Heard of such a place? Okay, so I heard those who are from there a little embarrassed, and they said, no, and everyone else must be not from New York, I guess. Okay, there's West Coasters, East Coasters, where are we from? Canada, it's a majority of Canada? Okay, yeah. I figured usually that's what happens in it too. Okay, so let's jump right in, shall we? This is a presentation known as the Seven Wonders of Jewish History. As Holy Rabbi just brought his introduction and idea, you'd expect to find the Lord throughout Jewish history. But there's a little bit more than just finding it. We're going to start to see some pretty phenomenal ideas. And that is like this. You see, there is trying to get this book called the Torah. Now, I know you've heard a number of different presentations so far, and you have your own Rebbein, the Baruch Hashem, that probably give you over some great, amazing ideas. Forgive me if I'm saying something they said. I don't know what they said. I know what Rav Amos said today, which sounded really good. But it goes as follows. We know we have a book, which is called the Torah, and we know that there's this presumption that it came from God. That's essentially what we come along and we say. The question is, how do we know that's true? That's the question. If it's true, it's true. If it's not true, it's not true. Right, so the question is, how do we know? Is there a way of us knowing that it's true? And it's very, very important to get one particular Nakuda out to be very clear, just as a quick introduction. Has anybody ever heard somebody say the following idea? You can't really know that the Torah came from God. You have to kind of accept it. You know, you got to take like the leap of faith, right? Or the hobble of knowledge, or the trip of belief. But you can't really know. Anyone ever heard that? Yes or no? Yes? Does anybody have self-esteem enough to say that you are that person? No self-esteem. All right, so this is the big question. You know, how do you really know? Can you know? You can't know. You just gotta accept it. You go with it. This is how we do it. But do we really know? Right? That's the question here. And I'm going to suggest the following: to the person who says, who claims, you can't really know. You can't really know. My response to that, I happen to agree with that person. I agree. You cannot really know. If you define knowledge a particular way, which you happen not to define it that way, therefore not only do I disagree with you, you disagree with you. Was that clear what I just said? I didn't yet say what I'm saying, but was the concept clear? One more time. If you want to tell me you can't know, I believe that you're correct, assuming you define knowledge a certain way. But you don't define it that way. Therefore, I'm going to suggest you can know, and you also agree with me. Example. You do not have to answer this question. And the lack of answering does not mean that you are answering. Is anybody here, by any chance, not adopted? Your parents are your biological parents. 3, 4, 6. Interesting. All right. Can I ask you a person? Yeah. Name, first name? Yehuda. Your parents are biological parents, correct? Good. You know this? This is yes? Okay. How do you know? So you don't know. Oh, that was quick. All right. Anybody else want to come? Yeah, name. First name. Jack. Zach? C-H? Zach. Go, Zach. How do you parents to your parents?
I don't know. I just know.
So basically, like, you don't know. Okay, next. You're like, I also don't know, by the way.
I assume they are from the picture of them holding me in the hospital.
Holding who?
Me.
You?
Yeah.
How do you know it's you?
Looks like me.
It looks like you. The baby looks like this. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. What do you got?
Depending on, not depending, can't think of the word, but, based on all the money they spent on all of us, I would pretty much say.
The word you're having a hard time was the word money? That was the money they spent. So if they spent money on you, it must be you're not adopted. I hear that. Interesting. Yeah, what do you name? First name? Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph.
Go.
DNA testing.
You did a DNA test.
23 and me.
You did that.
Yeah.
Was this like a birthday gift because your parents were unsure? Honey, happy birthday. I'm telling you, it doesn't look like us. Here. I'm not going to ask. I don't want to know about the court case. I'm sure it's still pending. But let's just play that game just for a moment. Let's play the DNA test for a moment. DNA testing. Give me a moment, gentlemen. Let's say DNA. Okay, let's play that. Accuracy of DNA is how much? Give me percentage-wise. It's 100% accurate, correct? No, it's about 98.4. If you watch Jeremy Kyle, if you're from England, you know what I'm talking about, and Jerry Springer. Right, so we're talking about, it's not 100%. That's 1 second. You look like the type of guy that could probably do this. I'm nervous to ask this, but here we go. Did you study biology, and this is something which you excel in?
No. I studied about it.
Oh, you were in a class where they spoke about it.
Yeah.
You heard of mitochondria.
Yes.
Right, that's not relevant for this conversation. But here's a question. So my question for you is as follows. Do you know how to run a DNA test?
No.
You have absolutely no idea. So some guy comes to your house, he's like, hi, you're like, he's nice, he must know how to run a DNA test. You have no idea. You trusted the guy. You have absolutely no idea. So DNA is a nice idea in theory, but again, A, it's not 100%. And Roman numeral 4, once we're going out of order, it's also, you don't know that it actually was done. Yeah, what do you want to say?
I'm identical to my mother in appearance, and,
You look like your mom?
and
Your mom has short hair like this? Yeah. Listen, I just want, and personality like your father. So let's start with the second one. It's a lot easier. So you need to be telling me that you are similar in personality to a person that you lived with your whole life. It's very unusual. Very unusual. It's very rare that occurs. And the first one you said about being identical. I look like Bradley Cooper. You know, it doesn't mean we're related. You understand? I'm just a little more weight and less hair. But point is, it's my younger brother. What I'm trying to say is, one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. Give me a second. One of the most, not the most embarrassing. Again, I can't talk about it in public because it's still that same lawsuit. But one of the most embarrassing moments is when I saw a woman and her daughter. I was like, wow, your daughter looks exactly like you. And she's like, she's adopted. I was like, I wasn't talking to you. I was altar v'sicha im ha'isha. You know? But okay, you can look like someone, and a lot of people look like their dogs if you walk them enough. It doesn't mean that you're related. Yeah, what do you want to say?
Not only do I look similar to my parents, but my brothers also look similar.
So you were all adopted. That's nice. That's really nice that they took you all in. Your mom took in your father and all of you, when your dad is your brother. I don't know. I don't things are getting weird here. Yeah.
So stupid.
Say
At a certain point, it's not worth taking that into account.
Excellent. That's a very good point. That's an excellent point that I'm going to concur. But only because you have an accent. I'm not sure where it's from, but I'm going to concur. And it's fake? That's it. How do I even know your parents? Okay, sit down. I'm not coming to arrest you guys too much. You're going to go home after this year, see your parents. You're like, hi, Mom. If that's your real name. She's going to turn to your dad and be like, he knows it's time. Okay, so fine. I'm not coming too much, but how do we actually know? Last one, last dance. Say it.
whatever proof is of use to show that my parents are my parents. Because we're going against that framework.
The burden of proof is on me to show that your parents are your parents? Are not your parents? Well, that's interesting. So let me just get this clear. You're saying the burden of proof is on me because... Oh, because your parents are parents. Oh. That was like, I can't. How am I going to rebuttal that one? That was like, you're right. They are your parents. Settled. Yeah. But let's say I said last one we're done. But now that we're done, yeah.
The burden of proof is on you because you go against the status quo. The
Oh yeah, no, I hear. The point is as follows. There's a question of when we say there's a status quo, you have something there. We have to look into what's the status quo, though. What is the status quo? Is the status quo a claim that this is the child? Right? Is the status quo that this happens to be? How many people here have had your parents say to you, you should just know you're actually my child? In other words, just go and say that the status quo is because you're living in someone else means you are the biological child. Doesn't have to necessarily be that that's the case. Although, I'm going to agree with it. I like it. It goes as follows. But my friend over here, who may or may not be from the United Kingdom.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, you and MI 12. Anyway, so here's the deal. Here's the deal, Mr. Bond. This is what we're gonna say. Is his name Bond? That'd be amazing. Is your name Bond? No. You could have just said yes. Your accent's not real. Your name's not real. Nothing's real. Okay, so here's the deal. To go ahead and ask a question like we say before, what's knowledge? Knowledge. People say, well, you can't really know. You just kind of have to believe, accept. Well, what's called knowledge? And I'm going to share with you a definition. You are welcome to argue with the definition, but do me and everyone else a favor, and I'm going to see who that. There's different types of that guys. You know, there's always that guy who's like, well, I don't understand because there's that guy who's going to pop up in a minute probably, but we'll get to know you in a second. But just do us a favor. Don't fight for the sake of fighting. If you have something intelligent to say, b'vakasha, please you tell me. But if it's just going to be some sort of random, like, actually, I disagree because I don't like your tie. Right? Just don't do that, please. All right? So it goes as follows. What is the definition of knowledge? Knowledge is when you have enough evidence that puts something into a realm where it is now reasonable to say that it is true. Think about it. Knowledge, when you have enough information that puts something into a realm where it is now reasonable to say that it is true. Think, fight it, hate it, accept it, love it. Let's move on. Okay, went through all the steps we need. Now think about it for a second. What do you know? Yes, you have a lot of evidence, and like you said, what's the point that we have so much going on? The burden of proof is against me to go against the status quo, which is a little bit more than just, I'm living in their house. But you have a birth certificate, you look like them, you have a DNA test, no one's ever said otherwise, everyone has said that that is the case. When you put all this together, it starts to paint a picture. It's an overwhelming amount of evidence that puts something into a realm where it's now reasonable to say that this is true. All y'all get it? Yes or no? Yes. Now, where did I get the definition from? The answer is I got the definition from every one of you. What do you actually say when you say the word knowledge? What do you mean? We say, yeah, I know. What you mean is you feel comfortable with the amount of evidence that puts something into a realm to say it is reasonable that that is the case. Now the question is, this book called the Torah Kedosha. How does one knows that this thing called the Torah comes from Hashem? How do we know the Torah came from Hashem? That's the question which we're coming to go over. We know that there is a book which is claimed to be the Torah, and we know there's such a thing that claims comes from Hashem. How do we know that both of them actually come together, though? So I imagine you've heard some ideas. I'm going to share another one with you right now, which is going to be through an idea known as prophecy. So let's start off with a little conversation. There was a conversation went on a couple years ago between two fellows, one by the name of King Louis XIV, and the other one known as Blaise Pascal. Anybody heard of these names? They lived approximately when? So we have a machlokas between either the 14-somethings or the 17-somethings. He was King Louis XIV, and it was the 17-somethings. Someone said it, what is it? 17th century, that would be the 1600s. No, that's confusing. Another time maybe I'd explain it. Living in the 1600s, King Louis XIV was what we call agnostic. Agnostic means I don't know. Maybe there is a God, maybe there isn't. I'm not saying that there is a God. I'm not saying there ain't no God. I'm saying I don't know. I don't have enough evidence that's going to put into a realm where I'm going to say conclusively in a way that I feel comfortable say that there's a God. But I'm not going to say that there isn't one, so I'm going to live my life. I want to live it. Then comes along Blaise Pascal. Blaise Pascal was a Christian philosopher, a mathematician. For those who know math, you've heard of Pascal's triangle, Pascal's theorem. For those who know philosophy or have learned a little bit, you know Pascal's wager. And one of the big ones comes up actually in this conversation with Pascal's wager, that even if it's maybe not true, it's still worth it. If you got that, great. If you didn't get it, I'm not going to that right now. It's an amazing thing to go into in no time. Now, so we got like this. King Louis, how do we know there's a God? This is how you know. How do we know? This, how do we? Until finally, one day he says to one, Pascal, enough. I want you to give me clear evidence of a supernatural force. He says, you want clear evidence of a supernatural force? The Jews, Your Majesty. The Jews. Says an agnostic king. says, I'm sorry, a Christian philosopher, to an agnostic king, you want to know evidence for a supernatural force? That would be the Jews. Now, what's supernatural about the Jews? If you're Shana Bet or whatever you call yourself, did you call it Shana Bet? Is that what you call it here? If you're Shana Bet, so then don't answer the question. If you're Shana Aleph, think, what do you got? What's supernatural, one of the most incredible things is the fact that we still exist today. The fact that we're still alive today is phenomenal. I don't know how many people, you wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror, you're like, supernatural. Right? You probably look and go, supernatural. Right? And then you realize it's your roommate. But point is that what does it mean? Or what's supernatural about us? Allow me to share with you a little quote from our friend Samuel Clemens. Maybe you heard of him as Mark Twain. He wasn't Jewish. He says, anti-Semitic. Anyway, came along, good old Sammy Sam, and he says the following. I don't know if you can read it. I'm going to read it for you. I'll try to do it slow and easy. The Egyptians, Babylon, and Persian rose to fill the planet with Samuel, Splendor, and finished, and passed away. So, it's talking about a lot of people. We had the Egyptians, the Persians, the Babylonians, the Persians. They rose, filled the planet with splendor, sound and splendor, and faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and the Roman followed, made a vast noise, and they are gone. Other people have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but it burned out and they sit in twilight now. Or vanished. The Jews saw them all, beat him all, and is now what he always was. Exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weak in his parts, no soilings of energy, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality? That's pretty amazing, right? You have a non-Jewish anti-Semite come along and saying something. Now listen, if I quote you a Rambam, you'd be like, okay, whatever. If I'm like, it's Mark Twain. Oh my goodness, it's true. We get like enamored by like non-Jews saying certain things, right? So what do we see? What's the secret? The fact that we exist. How about another one? Does anyone know somebody named Leo? Everybody raise your hands. You know somebody named Leo? Leo, picture a Leo in your mind. Is this what you were picturing? Oh yeah, really? Okay, there's a guy named Leo Tolstoy Nikolaevich, also a non-Jewish writer. He says the Jew is the emblem of eternity, who you neither slaughter nor torture of thousands of years could destroy. He whom neither fire nor sword nor inquisition was able to wipe off the face of the earth. He who was the first to produce the oracle of God. He who has been for so long the guardian of prophecy and transmitted to the rest of the world. Such a nation cannot be destroyed. The Jew is as everlasting as is eternity. The fact that we exist, name, who said it? Chaim. As Chaim pointed out, the fact that we still exist, my friends, is a phenomenal concept, which is really, really challenging to even try to fathom, because really, we really shouldn't be able to actually exist. So you have all the quotes over here, so you're welcome to, we always like to give them out so that you read them and don't pay attention to the class. All right, here we go.
Because you talk so slow.
Exactly. It's always good to do this. Yeah, I'm glad I'm here. Okay, so now, this, my friends, is the beginning to understand the fact that we exist is pretty phenomenal. Now we're gonna take a look at an idea, the following concept. I will say to you, in all seriousness, you're welcome to read ahead as much as you like. You will lose out. In other words, because you're gonna not catch the flow. So if you could just hold off with it, it would be better for you. If you don't want to, I truly don't care. You're welcome to do whatever you want. Here we go. So we have an option here. We two options. We have this thing called the Torah. So this Torah came from God. That's one, thing which people like to go with, and they're welcome to go with whatever they like. The other option is that there is no God, and this thing was totally made by people, and that's the option I would like to show tonight. This thing that you guys spending around learning all this Bible stuff and whatever, and Talmud and Mishnah and Gemara and all that stuff, it's nice and it's intellectual pursuits and whatnot. But you're saying you're coming from a base of because you believe that there's such a thing, called God. And again, I'm not against that. You're welcome to go with that. However, I'm going to try to show you tonight that actually there is no God, and this whole thing was made by people. Now, just a disclaimer for those who have a hard time understanding what I'm about to do. That's really not true. Let's make this very clear. If you've been a little bit not on the fast side in life, I'll make it clear. There is a God. God gave us the Torah, the end. That's all you need to hear. Now what I'm going to try to show you is that it actually came from a person or a group of people. And what ended up happening, what I'm going to try to show you through that is if I succeed in doing that, we may have a problem. But if I don't succeed in it, maybe the reason why I'm not succeeding is because I'm actually wrong. And that's the method we're going to be using. Is that clear? Everybody get it? I'm going to show you that it's not true. You're going to see that it is illogical to come up with this, that it's not true. And then that will pretty clearly demonstrate the fact that this actually is true. Was that clear? If it was clear, stare at me blankly. Good. All right. So now we have the following. Let's start with that method. All right, gentlemen, thank you for coming. Try to remove everything you know about Judaism from your mind. That was very quick. Okay. Now, I'd like to start a religion. I'd like to call it Judaism. Of course, there's that guy. Why Judaism? I had a cat named Judaism. Back off. All right. So we're going to start this thing. We're going to call it Judaism. And you guys will be my committee. I want you to, help me out and show me if you think I can get this off the ground. All right, let's go, committee. Let's begin. So listen. I want to start off with a prophecy because, what's a religion without a prophecy? The answer is it's a religion without a prophecy. But I want to have one with the prophecy because this is a lot stronger. It's more So therefore, we're going to come up with this prophecy, and my prophecy is going to be as follows. You tell me you think is a good one. We are going to be an eternal nation. We're going to live forever. We're going to be here. We're going to learn how to fly. We're going to be here forever. Is that a good, strong prophecy? Yes or no? Yes or no? I have one no here and the rest quiet. Yes or no? Yes. Why no?
How can you say that you could be an eternal nation?
So the question he asked me is, how can I say we're going to be that? That's a great question of how I can say it. But is it a good prophecy? In other words, is it enticing? Will it get people excited? Will people want to get part of that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good. Now you're going to ask me, how are you going to do that? Right? That's your question. And that's exactly the question I want you to ask. It's a great question. Number one, we're going to be an eternal nation. Now let me just show you where I have this in my book. Okay. If you look in Genesis, chapter 17, verse 7, and I quote, I'm going to read it in English. You're welcome to read it in Hebrew. But who are you kidding? Come on. Here we go. And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you throughout their generations, an eternal covenant. Eternal covenant. Interesting. To be your God and the God of the descendants after you. Eternal covenant means it's going to go on and on and on. It's going to continue. It's going to be forever. Or how about another quote we have from my third book, and that is Leviticus chapter 26, verses 44 and 45. Thus, even while they are in the land of their enemies, I will not reject or obliterate them, lest I break my covenant with them by destroying them. For I am the Lord their God. I will remember them because of the covenant I made with their original ancestors, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt in the sight of the nations, that I might be their God. So we find two very strong statements, two very strong prophecies that we are going to be here forever. It's a pretty powerful statement there. Now, it's an interesting point to note that whenever there's going to be some sort of prophet that's going to be made, the prophecy can't just be like this vague concept, that kind of it could be, that it'll work out. At some time in the future, there will be a son. Okay, unless you're from England, whatever. But at some point in the future, there's gonna be, shkoyach. You gotta give me something that kind of doesn't make sense, and yet still comes out. That's gonna be saying something over here. We're gonna be an eternal nation. We're gonna be here forever. Interesting. Comes along my friend, name? Ariel comes and he asks, okay, pero yo tengo una pregunta. I say, ¿qué es eso? He says, how you going to exist, ese? What you talk about? You're going to be forever. You're going to be eternal nación. How you going to pull that off, bro? How you going to make that happen? So I'll tell you what we'll do. People have their eternal, people have their national homelands. And they get on that land and they kind of live there forever, and that's their place. Well, the Jewish people are going to have that also. We are going to have a land, and we will always stay on that land. Is that the beginning of an answer? Yes or no? Do you know how many? 95% of all wars are fought over what? Land. Land, very good. 95% of wars are fought over land. If we could stay on our land, that would be pointing in a direction of longevity. That's a fancy word for long stuff. Yeah? If we could stay in our land. So get ready. Because of you, I have a second prophecy. Number one will be an eternal nation. Number two, because I want to back it up. You know what I'm saying? I want to back it up. So let's back it up. And that is, very clearly, I think it's logical, exile and dispersion. We will be chucked all over the world. Does that support eternal nation? Not so much. Now, where do we find? Just a short list of places that we've been chucked from. France, worms, France, and Arab lands. Okay, essentially, if you look and you search, then you will find it. We've been chucked time after time, but God will be waiting. We get chucked from one place to the next, and again and again and again and again and again, but we're still here. Unbelievable. Let's see just a little prophecy where we see this is going to be the case. Take a look again in our book of Leviticus. And you I will scatter among the nations at the point of my drawn sword, leaving your country desolate and your cities in ruins. Or another lovely quote. I appoint heaven and earth as witnesses for you today, that you will be cut off quickly from the land you are crossing the Jordan to acquire. You shall not remain there long, for you will be wiped out. God shall then scatter you among the peoples, and you shall be left few in number among the nations where God shall lead you. So we're seeing an interesting idea over here. That is, we're going to be exiled and dispersed. Prophesied, told what's going to happen. Now let me ask you a question. As we said before, I think it's clear. Exile and dispersion, does that help my case? If I was actually wanting you to be my committee, I want to get this off the ground. I'm like, guys, help me. Does this work? Do you think that people are going to buy my prophecies? And I start with saying we're going to be an eternal nation. Then I say we're going to be exiled and dispersed. How many people are lining up to buy this? The answer is not too many, right? Okay, this is what we call strike number one. But don't worry, committee, please. I have another plan. Even though we'll be exiled and dispersed, let's take a look at other people for a very long time, and maybe we'll use their methodology for survival, right? So for example, right, you know, China, Japan, India, these are people that have been around for a very long time. What was their method of survival? Let's start with Japan. Anybody know, how is it that Japan survived for so long? Say it. Sushi? Good. What were you saying though? That's an excellent answer. You were saying no one came to...
No one came to Japan until like they were isolated.
Okay, so let's start with the second part first. I think it's more important because that's explaining the reason. Yeah? The reason why Japan has survived for so long is because geographically they are in the middle of Japan. You say it's like, oh, one day someone wakes up and goes, hey, I think I'll go to Japan. Like, it doesn't work like that. You don't wake up and say, let's go to Japan. You can't just get on a boat and just like say, all right, Japan, here I come. You understand? It was very far. It was isolated. Matter of fact, people tried to come. In the 1600s, the Mongols tried even twice to overcome Japan. What ended up happening? When they tried to go take over Japan, everything was knocked over. The typhoons, monsoons, other soons, a lot of uns. And the whole fleet was knocked out. Very, very difficult. So maybe we could do the same thing that Japan did, and we're going to put our land also in the middle of nowhere, just like Japan. And that's why we know that Israel is in the middle of the east. Where is Israel? Israel is located, is a Yerushalayim. You understand where we are. Israel is a land bridge between three different continents. You want to go to Asia, Africa, Europe, you have to pass through Israel. Yerushalayim, the most conquered city in the world. It's conquered in upwards of 1 million times. Totally impossible, made that up. Approximately 36, about 36 times. Yeah. Anybody saw been to the Kotel tunnel thingamajigs? Anybody went to the tunnel tours? You see how it's built upon, what? Built upon. That's it, just that much. Right? What happens is that it was conquered and built and conquered and built. Conquered, built. It was kind of built. It's kind of built. Over and over and over again. So clearly we didn't use Japan's methodology of survival. All right, so let's take a look maybe at our friends India and China. Don't get thrown up in Nepal. How is it that India and China survived for so long? Say it. Very good. Very similar to the USSR, which thank God is going strong and never fell. Wait a minute, that's not true. Okay. I mean, how is it that they survived for so long? And by the way, even India, they had the Ottoman Empire, China, there was stuff going on, but eventually it falls. Yeah, why?
Just got built on using land features, like different lands.
Land features are a accurate thing. Say it? Yeah, I mean, the number one feature over here is just the fact that they have, just like billions of people. It's like, try to imagine like this army coming to China. You know, the Chinese look over, oh no, the white man is on his way. Oh, how many? 1 million. 1 million? We have 1 billion. Pass the rice. You know, it's like a joke. You know, it's like there's 1 billion. There's 1 billion. More than 1.8 billion. We're talking about close to 2 billion people. They're going to go out and say, "Come with 1 million." I don't think we understand what that means. 1 billion. It's a lot. It's more zeros than 1 million. All right. So, my friends, we're going to overcome that. So let's do the same thing. I have a prophecy. Yes, we'll be exiled and dispersed, but don't worry. We will survive because just like China and India, they have so many people. We too are going to be few in number. Good? Was that a good, strong prophecy that would show us longevity? Yes or no? Not so much. Where do we find this to be true? Where do we find this to be the case? Take a look in the book. And you shall remain few in number among the nations, or God shall lead you. All right, pretty straightforward. Doesn't get more straight than that. Yeah, what do you got?
But weren't there other prophecies that said we were going to be like the dust of the sand and the stars in the sky?
Did you hear the question at the back? Right? Okay, so for those who didn't hear, but at least one heard, it doesn't say we'd be like the dust of the sand, the stars of the sky, right? Okay, so no questions. Okay, so now, let's move on. Can you, what's your name? Matthew, can you see the board well? Can this thing, whatever they call it?
Yeah.
This is a real question because it could be glasses on. Can you read it?
Yes.
Okay, I want you to read this next thing out loud. You ready? Chapaw. Go.
You shall remain few in number, whereas you could have become as numerous as the stars of the heavens, because you would not obey the voice of the Lord your God.
Excellent. So it was a great question. And thank you, I planted him. Thank you. And the Torah itself says, answering only for Matthew's question, and that is are you French or it's EW at the end? Okay. So to Zach, I thought it maybe would be Matix, you know what I mean? Like Matix, you know. Okay. Anyway, so you should remain few in numbers, which you could have become as numerous as the stars of the heavens, because you don't obey the voice of the Lord your God. When you don't obey the voice, you don't listen to the voice, then we've got a problem. So we see it's contingent how many we're going to be. But the fact that we'll be, will be. Got it? Good. Excellent question. If I just say so myself, a great answer. All right, so now, let's take a look. We start to see, it's a little strange though. We know that the very first mitzvah in the Torah is be fruitful and multiply. Peru uravu. Allow me to make this very clear. This means with your spouse. Now, the average secular couple has between 1.2 kids and a dog. Right? I don't know if everyone could see it, but I know you're thinking, where's a point two? Okay. The average ultra-Orthodox couple has between 12 and 64 children. Now, if you do the math a little, there's always a guy from, it comes from a family not like that. They're like, is he serious? 64? The answer is no. I don't want to exaggerate. It's like 50, whatever. Right? We are an ancient people. We've been around. We have a high birth rate. We should have tons of Jews. What's going on? How many do we actually have? Let's take a look and see. There's actually a census done. This is not accurate. This is a lot more. But in the year 200 BCE, this census was accurate. There's approximately 30 million Chinese people. Today, it says 1.3 here, but it's probably 1.8 closer. We got ridiculous, exponential growth. What's going on, right? Amazing. What about the Jews? It's estimated that in the year 1 CE, there were between 6 and 8 million Jews. Today, if we took the same growth rate, you don't have to take the same growth rate. I'm saying even if you were to take a smaller growth rate with all the euthanasia, and we go put that together, we should be somewhere. It's a little sinister. I apologize for that one, but you'd have to get it, and if you got it, that means you understand that I really mean it. And you probably didn't get it, but okay. Now you put that together, it means we should be somewhere between 250 and 750 million Jews today. And we know approximately how many Jews are there today. That little line right there. So it's about 14 to 15 million Jews. If you can't see it, that would be accurate. But 14 to 15 million Jews. It's pretty amazing. If you take a look, let's look at it from a pie chart perspective, because we all like pie, you know. China, 20%. There's India, and there are the Jews. That's why you always have these women, and also men do it, but women's like, can I get a little slice? Can I just get a little slice of cake? Just a little slice, you know? You cut them a little slice, they take the rest of the cake and walk away. Enough about my family. I'm just saying that's, we have very few Jews in the world. That is pretty amazing to think about that concept. So we're going to be here forever, eternal, yet we're going to have exile and dispersion, and we're going to be few in number. This is what we call strike number 2. Y'all with me? But don't worry, because I think it was the cockroaches that said, the Beatles that said, sorry, English people, all you need is, oh, look at all y'all. Money. American. All right. All you need is, don't worry about it. Even though we're exiled dispersed and we're few in number, I have a way to make sure, a prophecy that will show we're going to survive, and that is everybody will hate us. Isn't that great? Hey, Mazel Tov, by the way, they hate you. This is anti-Semitism. It's an incredible concept that the whole world, Levi said they all love us. They love us to death. But it's just incredible kind of to start to think about that. Like anti-Semitism, where do we find this spoken about? Well, I'd like to go back to my book, okay, chapter 5, that'll be Deuteronomy. And those of you who survive in the land of your enemies, thou shalt make so faint-hearted that if leaves rustle behind them, they will flee headlong as if from the sword, though no one pursues them, stumbling over one another to escape a weapon, while no one is after them. So helpless, helpless, helpless will you be to take a stand against our foes. You shall perish among the nations, and the lands of your enemies shall consume you. Or another phrase which says the same thing. Now here's the point. Point is, we start to see, we're really hated. You want to see more explicit, you'd have to take a look at a Gemara. For those in Shana Aleph, this is a picture of a Gemara. Now, this is a Masechet Shabbos, or Masechet Shabbat, or Masechet Shabbat, page 89, Peites, Amud Aleph, and I'm going to bring you just in a little. We take a look at the third to last line, we ask ourselves the following question. It says, the Gemara, my Har Sinai. What is my? What is my? Thank you. How high is a Chinaman? How high is a Chinaman? Yes. Okay. If we didn't get it, help them after. All right. The word my means what? My Har Sinai. What is Mount Sinai? Now we're trying to figure out here, why is Har Sinai called Har Sinai? Says the Gemara, Har Sheyarda Sino La'akum. It is the mountain that came down upon it hatred to the nations of the world. That's pretty amazing right there. Now, for those who are a little astute, you may catch some letter changes there and say, what is this, a Hirsch move? The answer is possibly, but another answer is, for those who are not yet familiar with Siman Reish Pei Hey, hopefully you'll get there one day. It's known as, what is it? Siman Reish Pei Hey, Shulchan Aruch. What does it say? I'll give you a way to remember it. What does the word Rafa mean? Reish Pei Hey, Rafa. It means weak. It means weakened. Weakened. Like Rafu Yodayim, right? Their hands weakened. Who said that? Nice. So if you look at Siman Reish Pei Hey, you'll find Allah, which is on a Shnayim Mikra V'Chatagim. You'll remember that that's the case because unfortunately people are very weak at doing it. But the point is, if you learn Shnayim Mikra, you'd notice something that the Aramaic word for Sinai is Sinai. That happens to be one's Hebrew, one's Aramaic. So it's Har Sheyarda Sino La'akum means the mountain that hatred came down to the world. We are hated. We are hated incredibly from our inception. Great movie. Now, let me take a look from this. It's pretty amazing. Do not misunderstand this question. If you hate black people, do not misunderstand my question. People have misunderstood this and said the answer I'm not looking for. If you hate black people, what are you called? You are called a racist. Okay, whoever said that, I now made very clear what you are. All right. If you hate white people, what are you called? Racist. If you hate Arabs, what are you called? Racist. If you hate Asians, what do you call? Racist. If you hate Jews, what do you call? Anti-Semite. Isn't that lovely? We have our own special word. It's amazing. Now, I just want to just quickly address someone who said Islamophobia. That's not hatred, that's fear. Now, those colloquially, it's understood to be that concept, but the actual term, Islamophobia, phobia means a fear. It's a fear of, it's not a hatred of. Now we go a little further and say, well, maybe it's not even called a race, the Jewish people, what that is, but we still find phenomenally that we have our own particular lesson thing just for us, and then there's always somebody who likes to pull a move. Don't be that guy who does the Arab thing, because you're going to look a little silly. I just saved you. I know who you are, and I'm not going to look in your direction. I just saved you from being embarrassed. But we're going to come to it in a minute. I'll explain to you why it's not accurate. Anti-Semitism. Allow me to explain what is anti-Semitism. Take a look. Anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism, anti-noun, discrimination against, or prejudice or hostility toward Jews. Anti-Semitism is particular to Jews. Now I will ask the question for those who'd like to ask the question, and it goes like this. Well, how do you say anti-Semitism in Hebrew? Anti-Shemiut. Why is it called anti-Shemiut? Because anti-Shemiut comes from anti, against, Shemiut from shame. We're against shame. Shame, we know, was the son of Noach had three sons, Shem, Cham, Yafet. One of them was named Shem, and came from the Jews. The Jews. Who else came from the Shem? The Arabs, or the Arabs. And that goes as follows. Now, if that's true, then if you hate an Arab, you should call the anti-Semite, right? Although you're correct, etymologically speaking. It's a fancy word for the origin of words. Although you are correct, if you took the word and broke it down, break it, you get, okay, anti-Semites against Arabs, right? That would be correcto. However, pero, although that is a good beginning, it's not accurate historically. Historically, mate, there was a guy by the name of Wilhelm Marr, German journalist, 1879. He said there's such a hatred towards Jews, it needs its own name. So he coined a phrase called anti-Semitism. The word was created particularly for Jews, and there are many words like that. You heard of the word Holocaust, although it's two words in Greek actually, Holocaust, but it was used first, Jews. Genocide, Jews. Ghetto. You ever heard someone say, yo, I'm from the ghetto? Oh, you also wear a yellow star behind barbed wire in really terrible conditions? Because that's what the word ghetto, that's where it comes from. Pogrom, Jews. Money. Okay, anyway, the point is that we find such a crazy hatred. It really breaks down, I don't like this. All right. Yeah. We break this down into 4 different categories. The uniqueness of how much we're hated. Universality, intensity, longevity, rationality. Let's start with universality. Where? You can do it, I believe in you. I believe in you. All right. Where around the world are we hated? Yeah, that's right. Okay, next. Intensity. I have a feeling nothing's going to show up. Oh, look at that. You see, if you don't like your neighbor, you may egg their house, cut their water line. How many of you say, honey, I know what to do? Let's kill them and their family. Okay, that just got really dark. The hatred that they had for us, the intensity, the final solution, finish it off, that's pretty crazy. How about longevity? How long have we been hated? Yeah, it's not going to work. Anyway, a long time. A very long time. From the very beginning. And then we have a rationality. It's amazing. You could ask 2 people the same question twice. Or, every generation blames a Jew before. You know why we're hated? Because we're rich. And the reason we're hated is because we're poor. It's because we're beautiful. It's because we're ugly. We're different. We're the same. We're powerful. We're weak. We're dominant, we're passive. Leaders, followers, social capitalists, cake monarch, conservative, radical, are my favorite. Can't stand those religious fanatics. They're such atheists. It's just irrational. You know how crazy it is that the Jews, they're such separatists. They just want to be on their own and nothing to do with the rest of the world. It's crazy how they run the government. What did you just say? They run the government while being separatists, having their own thing, but they're with us while doing the thing separately, together. You understand? No. It's just irrational. But again, I think the number 1 study that was ever done on anti-Semitism was by Professor Cohen. Some of you might be familiar with some of his work. Professor Cohen has put out some monumental works. Can I refer you to Borat, Ali G, and many other classics. And for those who are not familiar with who this is, I guess there is still hope for mankind until this evening. That is. English people will get a kick out of saying that we know him, or they will be embarrassed at the fact that they know him. This is a Jew by the name of Sacha Baron Cohen. Sacha Baron Cohen lives in London, I believe. He is a Jewish guy. Say it. He lives in LA?
Yeah.
Oh, he moved? He goes to your show? You guys chill? You chill with Sacha?
I think one of his first cousin is a Rebbe in this area.
His first cousin is a Rebbe here.
Second cousin.
Oh, then we're fine. Second cousin. Anyway, I believe you, but it's just second cousin. It's none of that. All right, so it goes like this. Unless he's Friday. He's Friday? Yeah. So then second cousins mean something. It's a beautiful thing. All right. So we have like this. What did Professor Cohen teach us? He came around and he wanted to basically show the world something pretty amazing. He went out making a lot of films, a lot of movies, a lot of interviews that are quite anti-Semitic, actually, although he's Jewish. So why did he do it? 2 reasons. 1, money, 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 money. That's my man. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. One of them is money. And the other reason why he did it is because he wanted to show the world something. He had his grandfather was in a little place called Auschwitz. His grandfather was a survivor, and he wanted to show the world that even if people don't know what a Jew is, they're still going to hate them. That's when he came out with his hit single, "Throw the Jew Down the Well." Anybody not heard this song before? Wow. Why don't you just think about this? He goes to some place in Arizona. Who's Arizona? I think it was in Arizona he went to some bar in Arizona. He pretends he's from Kazakhstan. He gets up there and he sings the following song. "In my country we have a problem. And the problem is the Jew. Throw the Jew down the well." And everyone's like, "Throw the Jew down the well, so my country can be free, so his country can be free. We must grab him by his horns, we must grab him by his horns, and then we'll have a big party." Could you imagine if he got up in front of a crowd and he started to singing, "Throw the midget down the well"? What would happen? What would happen? Immediate uproar. "How dare you say it's terrorist, disgusting, it's vertically challenged. You don't say that, that's entirely a disgusting person." But he's saying it's a Jew, and all of a sudden, bam, we're good to go. Pretty amazing idea, my friends. This thing called anti-Semitism. Get out of that mustache right there. Just stop it right there. You know when he does that in shul. You know what I'm talking about. All right. Anti-Semitism, my friends, that would be what we call strike numero tres, number 3. I'm trying to tell you, we're going to start a religion. We're going to start this thing called Judaism, and we're going to live forever. We're going to have longevity. We're going to have eternal nation. And then I go into prophesize and say, we're going to be exiled and dispersed. We're few number. We're going to be hated by everyone. Yeah.
So the fact that there's so much anti-Semitism in the world will mean that Jews stay amongst themselves and don't intermarry, meaning that it ensures continuation.
Yeah, so his point was as follows, what do you mean? This maybe is a support for our longevity, because the fact is, if we're going to have so much anti-Semitism, we're going to stick to ourselves. When we stick to ourselves, what's going to happen is we're going to ensure ourselves to be survived, right? That's a very good idea, what we call retrospect. I don't know that that's a plan. Now, I have an idea, and I can actually have control over this. Let's make sure our survival will be here because everyone will hate us. You understand? You happen to be correct. Looking back and say hey, that could work. But is that what you would set out to set up as a plan? And what happens if they succeed in killing us all? You understand? When we're dealing with the concept that everyone's going to hate us and propaganda, put it all out there, you know what I'm saying? It's pretty scary. So when we put this all together, we start to see it's painting a little bit of a picture. Not only do these prophecies, which are saying some pretty specific concepts, ideas about what we are going to go through, not only do they not make sense, they seem to contradict each other. That we're going to be here, we're going to go through all this stuff. What would you expect from such a nation that was exiled and dispersed, that was few in number, that was hated by everyone? Survival? Not really. And if they did survive, would you expect them to A, be thriving and changing the world, or B, bleeding from every orifice, waiting to get kicked in the head again? Yeah, I'd go with the latter also. I'd go with B with that. You know, people say what doesn't kill you makes you almost dead. It doesn't make you strong. What are you talking about? It doesn't kill you. Now I'm stronger. You ever saw a person who's almost killed on the floor? I am now stronger. No, you're not. You're actually much weaker than you were before this whole thing started. We're waiting, we're bleeding and kicked all over the place. Pogrom, Holocaust, and this crazy stuff happening all the time. Who do you expect us? We're going to thrive and affect the world, but that brings us to the next prophecy. We are going to be a light unto the nations. Yeah, right. You're going to survive exile and dispersion, few in number and hatred, and then you're going to change the world for the better. What are you, crazy? It doesn't make any sense. But where do we find this actually prophesied? So, number 1, we have, and I bless those, just underlined, I will bless those that bless you, curse those who curse you. Through you, all the communities of the earth shall be blessed. Or more particular, I, the Lord, have called you in righteousness and will hold your hand and keep you. And I will establish you as a covenant of the people for a light unto the nations. Pretty straight up in Yeshaya. Or as it goes in the next one, nations underlined. Nations to then go by your light and kings by your radiant illumination. We are going to light up the world. And have the Jews affected the world? Yes or no? Let's take a little look at here. Who's this guy up there? Albert Einstein. I think he has some impact, right? Jewish guy. All right. How about, what's this over here? A kosher phone. Okay, good. A cell phone. Where'd that come from? Israeli technology. First cell phones created by Israeli technology. Okay, Jews. What's that over there? Good. Nobel. Nobel Prize, good. In particular, you got stuck on, what was his name again? No. I have him in my head. The PA guy. Keep going back. Oh, Arafat, right. So I was saying, like, peace. That's why you're thinking that. All right. We're less than 1/4% of the world population. I want to give you a little visual of what that means, all right? Imagine there's 100 pieces of cake. How many of those cakes represent the Jewish people? Take one of them, cut it into 5 slices, take the smallest slice, and it's less than that. We're less than 1/4% of the world population, yet Jews have won more than 20, or perhaps 25% of Nobel Prizes. That's pretty phenomenal. Those are pretty amazing things. What's this over here? Waze, created by a Jew. What's this over here? Facebook, stolen by? Created by? Okay. And the point is, I don't want to get into it now. But is that what we mean? I mean, this is a pretty amazing thing. Is that what we mean? Is that what we mean when we say we're going to be a light into the nations, that we're going to be secular scientists and mathematicians? That's what we mean, my friends? I think not. We mean so much more. We mean something called monotheism. Monotheism, the fact that there's one God. The fact that there's one God. And what did that do to the world? What kind of impact did that have? Let me read you a quote over here, one of my favorite quotes. Besides the Torah Kedosha, John Adams, second. This is second president of the United States of America, and he was a bit loony, historically, but he still wrote the following idea. I will insist that the Hebrews have done more to civilize men than any other nation. If I were an atheist and believed in blind eternal fate, I should still believe their fate had ordained the Jews to be the most essential instrument for civilizing the nations. If I were an atheist of the other sect, I should still believe that chance had ordained the Jews to preserve and propagate to all mankind the doctrine of a supreme, intelligent, wise, almighty sovereign of the universe, which I believe to be the great essential principle of all morality and consequently of all civilization. They're the most glorious nation that has ever inhabited this earth. The Romans and their empire were but a bauble in comparison to the Jews. They've given religion to 3/4 of the globe and have influenced the affairs of mankind more and more happily than any other nation, ancient or modern. And we have people that are running away from Judaism, going off the derech. Are you crazy? We're the most glorious nation. People that say that, they're not crazy, just don't appreciate what it is. Some people go through serious issues. I'm not talking about traumatic stuff. It's like, okay, it's just like, you woke me up for Shacharis, I'm going off the derech. Yeah, my father used to wake me up in the morning. I said, because you woke me, now I'm not going to Shacharis. He's like, that makes no sense because you were sleeping. So what do you mean now you're not going to Shacharis? I said, but I would have maybe gone b'diavad, b'diavad. But now I'm not going to go with Kavana. Right, so we get ridiculous. We're the most glorious nation, glory, that's ever inhabited this earth. My friends, what an incredible idea. We're going to be something known as the light to the nations. 2 more prophecies till we bring it home. 2 more prophecies. This is just like phenomenal concepts or ideas that bring out something amazing. Anybody here know a farmer? You personally? You know a farmer? Yeah? A relative of yours?
No.
Someone you know and you have a relationship with?
Yeah.
They enjoy farming?
I assume so.
Why? Why would you assume that?
It's a life for some people.
Interesting. Anybody know a farmer that they know they love farming? Old MacDonald? Nowhere in the song you have no raya. Nowhere in the song does it say he loved him. Just gonna that's all we have. The Hotanya. Yeah? You know someone? Farmer? Loves farming? Love their land? Would they say like, I love my land? He's going to assume also, right? I love my land. How many of those farmers then would say, not only do I love my land, but my land told me he loves me too? It depends what you're farming. I mean, it does depend. There's certain parts of Jersey now that or whatever, right? So it depends what's going on. He's like, my backyard, yeah. Anyway, but what we see is that I love my land loves me. Do we find such a concept that the land loves the people? So, my friends, we get into what's known as interdependency, a relationship between the Jewish people and the land of Israel. This is just an unbelievable concept. And we see the following. What did the land of Israel look like before the Jewish people came? I have come down to rescue them from Egypt's power. I will bring them out of the land to a good, spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey. And it's a bathalab. Halav Davash, right? Okay, good. It's beautiful, amazing land. And what happens when the Jewish people get that? We're talking about you don't believe it from the book. Let's take a look from Josephus. Josephus was a historian living at the time of the first temple. For the whole area is excellent for crops or pasturage and rich in trees of every kind. So by its fertility it invites even those least inclined to work in the land. In fact, every inch of it has been cultivated by the inhabitants and not a parcel goes to waste. It is thickly covered with towns, and thanks to the natural abundance of the soil, the many villages are so densely populated that the smallest of them has more than 15,000 inhabitants. Now, if you have no idea what that just said, I'll tell you. It said the land is awesome. No cap. This is the real deal. Now, let's try to understand that. Yeah, we're talking about dropping racks on this thing. All right. This is when the Jewish people are there. Gorgeous, beautiful land. Delicious. Just splendid. What happened when the Jewish people, when they leave the land? And don't think that nobody tried to live here. The Byzantines, the Babylonians, the Mamluks, don't get me started on the Fatimids and the Abbasids. So many people tried to live in this land, they just weren't able to really cultivate it. What happens when the Jews leave? So devastated will I leave the land that your enemies who live there will be astonished. Your land will remain desolate, your cities in ruins. Another quote which says the same thing. My friend, we see this amazing concept. The Jews are there. This is not true. The Jews are there. We have this gorgeous land. The Jews leave. All of a sudden it becomes what we call a barren, desolate wasteland. And that's not me saying. I'm quoting back to our friend from the beginning. Our friend, the anti-Semite, Mark Twain. Comes on Mark and he says, he came to Israel, this is 155 years ago. Relatively speaking, that's quite recent in history. 150, we're talking about a buck and a half. That's it, a buck of change. And what does he say? He comes to Israel and he says, we traverse some miles of desolate country, whose soil is rich, but is given wholly to weeds. A silent, mournful expanse. A desolation is here that not even imagination can grace with the pomp of life and action. We reached Tabor safely. We never saw a human being in the whole route. We pressed on toward the goal of our crusade, renowned Jerusalem. The further we went, the hotter the sun got, and the more rocky and bare, repulsive and dreary the landscape became. There was hardly a tree or a shrub anywhere. Even the olive and the cactus, those fast friends of a worthless soil, had almost deserted the country. No landscape exists that is more tiresome to the eye than that which bounds the approaches to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is mournful, dreary, and lifeless. I would not desire to live here. It is a hopeless, dreary, heartbroken land. Palestine sits in sackcloth and ashes. Doesn't have the whole quote here. The end is, Palestine is no more of this workday world. It is sacred to poetry and dream stuff. It's an amazing concept. It doesn't, it's like, and as we know today, 2022, or tough should pay bays if you're like trying to get old. Now, as here we are in 5782, if you want to sound scholastically religious, as here we are right now, we know that Israel is like a barren, desolate wasteland and is not involved in this workday world. Would we all agree? Would you agree? Not at all. What are you talking about? Let's start with the obvious. Technology. But bam! Israel is notorious for creating incredible technology, sending it to America, and then we have to buy it back for ridiculous prices. But essentially, it's incredible. Now you think, okay, what about agriculture, the actual land? What about the actual land? You guys heard of a thing called they called it the Hitgarashut. Does that sound familiar to anybody? No? Okay, there was a place called Gush Katif. You familiar with that? It was a horrible time, really, really horrible time. Hitgarashut was like the divorce, when the Jewish people turned against Jewish people, and they gave away the land. What was Gush Katif? Gush Katif is the area where they were supplying the country with all of their vegetables. And they gave it away, they gave it to the Arabs. They were exporting, in 2005, before this happened, they were exporting every year in upwards of $200 million a year in produce. Nowhere of this workday world. And what's phenomenal is that when the Jewish people actually got kicked out of there, and then the Arabs came to plant the very land that they were just planting on, it started reaping only about 10% of what the Jews reaped. So you say, oh, it's because the Jews know the trick of how to work the land more than the Arabs. The same Arabs that were hired to work the land before were now the ones living there and working it, and it was only giving 10% of what it used to give. That's today. That's 15, 20 years ago. We're talking about very recent, my friends. This is an incredible concept to come to recognize what's happening here. That we have this relationship. And you think about it's a little phenomenal. Think about the Native Americans. There they are in America, and what happens? The white man is arriving, and they say, oh no. So the chief calls them together, and he says to the land, land, when white man arriveth, sprout fortheth nothingeth, no vegetationeth or herbage of any kind. I mean, barren and desolate land, small chief, big river, little bear, let's go. And we know that the moment that the Native Americans left America, America has remained a barren, desolate wasteland. But it's simply not true. We probably could use better pictures to depict this concept, but we even have cabs and buildings. America's become a superpower, second only to China. Right, a superpower of the world. Too soon? Right, we're talking about my friends. This is an incredible concept. Interdependency relationship. But last but not least, after a message from our sponsor, hit it.
You can argue that the Arabs are only there so that we're not there. I mean, when Americans came to America, they actually wanted to build there and be there. The Arabs just want to be there so we're not. So they're not necessarily going to work it.
Right, you're talking a concept that's what we would call speculation, Your Honor. The facts on the ground is they did try to work it. I'll tell you the amazing thing. There was a yeshiva, or David is a yeshiva, that came to Isha Torah. Actually, they came about 2 weeks ago to hear a presentation like this. But a few years ago, the mashgiach there, and if you are interested, I'd be happy to be in touch with him, knows the person that works on that land as the mashgiach in Gush Katif. He got a call from the Arab guy after the whole trade-off, or whatever, the robbery, and said, what did you guys do to our land? This is what the Arab guy said to the religious guy, saying, what are you talking about? Why would we do it? We didn't do anything to the land. We didn't want to leave the land. We were literally kicked out and pulled and dragging. And if you know what happened, it was a really horrible time. Dragged out, and they sent in non-Jewish police officers, mostly Russian, to just come in so they shouldn't have any sympathy towards Jews, because it was Jew versus Jew. Really, really horrible. And what happened? They ripped off the land. They didn't want to poison the land. Why would we do that to Eretz Yisrael? No way. These are diehards, you understand? And they came and they tried to go and they weren't able to do it. So it's not just saying this is actual, this isn't like in theoretical world. Okay, last but not least, my friends, we have what's called return again, come back. The fact that it's back to me now, the fact that I can hear my home, the Jews can hear my homeroom corner. The fact that the Jewish people are going to come back to the land of Israel. This is not possible. You think about any other people in the world that have left their land. You know what happened to them? There's never been a people that have had a land that left their land that came back to their land. Never. Let alone twice. You know what happens to overall majority? They assimilate and they are finito. Eso es todo, terminamos. Done. But we find over here, we're going to come back to the land. Whenever you're ready. And the Lord your God shall return you from your captivity, have compassion upon you, shall return and gather you from among all the nations, and the Lord your God will bring you into the land that your fathers inherited. You will acquire it, and he will make you even more prosperous and numerous than your fathers. Another quote from Jeremiah says, for thus said, shout with joy for Jacob, exalt at the head of the nations, proclaim your praise and say, oh God, deliver your people, the remnant of Israel. Behold, I will bring them back from the northern lands and gather them from the ends of the world. The Jewish people are going to come back to the land of Israel, my friend. It's a phenomenal concept. Do you know statistically, does anyone know statistically how many, percentage-wise, of the Jewish people were living in Israel near 1900? 0.5, very good, 0.5. Today, anyone know what the number is, statistics? This is a couple years ago already. We're over 48%. Over 48% in 120 some odd years to go from 0.5 to jump to 50%. Do you understand that is a statistical anomaly? It's unbelievable to say such a thing that could occur. That we're going to even come back. Ah, my friends, is incredible. That's pretty amazing. And again, we have another quote from Ezekiel. It's the same thing. It's on your sheet. You can look at it. I'm not doing it. But here we go. We take this barren, desolate wasteland and we start to build it up until it becomes something big. You know why? Simply because I'm coming home. What was it? This is a thing, I've been teaching this so long, now I have to say this a little bit longer. Your great-grandparents, if you were to tell them, I used to say grandparents or parents, your great-grandparents, if you were to tell them, you know, I'm going to be sitting opposite the kotel, I'm going to be sitting opposite the kotel, I'm going to be steiging and learning in Torah, they'd be like, what are you, out of your mind? They'd say something in Russian, but they go out and say, this is crazy, it doesn't make any sense. And here we are. Thriving in an incredible way. And I'm stalling for one reason, the solo. I'm coming home. The fact that the Jewish people are going to make it back, phenomenal, incredible. Build that all up together, my friends, we start to see something pretty amazing. We start off with a question over here. We see we have this thing called the Torah. We suggest it came from God, but we say, how do you really know? Well, it came from God or it came from a person or a group of individuals. Let's just take a look and see. And then we go and we say the following. We're going to be in a termination. It will be exile, dispersion, few in number. Everyone's going to hate us. We're going to be yet a light unto the nations, have a relationship with the land, that when we're here it grows, when we leave it doesn't. And we're going to come back to the land? What are you talking about? That's a crazy concept. But there's something which brings it above and beyond even crazier. Stop and think about the following. I'm sure you guys are steigen while you're learning away. It's amazing. It's so beautiful. You're probably not familiar with it. There's a place in Yerushalayim they call town. And in town, they have a little area that they call Crack Square. Now, the reason it's called Crack Square is because the pavement is very uneven. And there's a lot of people that do crack. Now, I want you to try to imagine. You go out there, you're hanging out in Crack Square, you're meeting your chavusa from all the seminaries, and it's chavusa, komitei. Anyway, so you go ahead. You're going out there, you're like, it's an olive though. Anyway, point is you're going out, you're hanging out in Crack Square. Try to imagine as you're standing over there, suddenly this guy comes out of nowhere and he just pops up and he's like, yo, listen, tishma, habibi. Listen. Listen to me. In 10 minutes, listen, 10 minutos, listen, 10 daqot, listen to me. That's Arabic. Listen. In 10 minutes. Okay, may I ask you? Yeah, you'll be the guy? What's your name? Moshe. So you're there. Listen, in 10 minutes, it's going to be a little rumble. You understand what I'm saying? Rumble, It's going to be shaky. And what's going to happen? The ground's going to open up. 10 golden chariots are going to pop out. They're going to circle your head 3 times, then they're going to fly away. Listen. Another guy walks away. Moshe, what would you be thinking? Another day at the office. What just happened? You think something's a little bit off, hopefully? I mean, I don't know your background, but something's a little off there. You're like, hey, some of my family members, whatever. But you say, no, there's a little off. What's going on? What would you then be thinking, Moshe, if 10 minutes later you started to feel the ground shake? You're like, oh, mi Dios, ¿qué es esto? You take a step back. Suddenly the ground opens up. You're like, what? 9 golden chariots pop out. And you're like, I thought 10. A 10th pops out. Circles your head 3 times and then flies off. You didn't drink anything, right? You didn't drink any alcohol. You didn't do any PCP, crack, smack, weed, heroin. You didn't even eat the yeshiva food. Nothing. You're totally sober. What would you then be thinking? What do you guys say? That guy must have, what's going on over there? The guy must have known something. Seemed a little off, but he knew some stuff. Let's say you'd be there and nobody would come over to you, but simply the ground would start to shake and open up and 10 golden chariots would pop out, circle ahead and went off. Would that be phenomenal? What takes it above and beyond? That somebody predicted it before it happened. You understand? If we would be exiled and dispersed, if that would be it alone, and we would survive, that's phenomenal. If we would be few in number and survive, that's phenomenal. Put the 2 together, come on. You keep going, we're going to be hated by everyone? That's phenomenal. Yet we're going to be a light of the nations, phenomenal. We're going to be interdependent and return to the land. These, my friends, each one of these are statistical impossibilities. Forget anomalies. This is like, what? That's crazy. What puts it above and beyond? The fact that not only is it that it happened, but that it was all predicted before it happened in the first place. So we go ahead and we ask ourselves a question. Well, how do we know that this thing called the Torah Kedosha, how do we know that this thing called the Torah actually came from Creador del Mundo, Dios, Papa? How do we know it came from the law? Hallelujah. How do we know that it came from Hashem? He says, I ask you, does it make any logical sense that someone can go ahead and contradict himself over and over and yet predict such an idea that they're going to even happen, that it happens in the way that it says it's going to occur, and that each one works together? My friends, maybe the reason why it was able to be done because it actually did come from God, And this book called the Torah was not just some random book that somebody picked up and decided to say something. So we ask ourselves in the beginning, what's called knowledge? Knowledge is when you have enough evidence to put something in the realm which is reasonable to say it's actually true. Anybody who wasn't emotionally challenged, which is very hard, it is, would in a second see this. And this is the most incredible thing. When I have groups that come in that are not Jewish, taught non-Jewish groups, they immediately they're like, this is amazing. Jewish groups? But how do you know? Taka. What do you mean, but we just said it? No, but I have a problem. What's the problem? I don't know. But how do you know? What are you talking about? And there's a reason why we do that. You know why we do that and the other people won't do it? Because there's ramifications. We don't want it to be true. I want to mess around with someone else's spouse on Yom Kippur in the Kodesh HaKadoshim while eating a cheeseburger that I stole without making a bracha. I went forward with the bracha thing. I apologize. And if this thing is true, that means I have restrictions and things I actually have to do and I just don't want to do it. So therefore, I'm going to fight for my right. Fiesta all night long. Or maybe, my friends, you can actually take a look at this and start to see, this actually makes sense. What you do with this information, that's your choice. Don't think because you have it, it means that all of a sudden you're going to be, wow, now I'm connected. This is information, which is a base to understand, have a clarity on where we're coming from. Now we have to make a choice of what we're going to do with that information. My friends, I went over time, so I'm going to hang out a little bit if you have any questions. Until then, it's been a pleasure. See you when I see you. Have a good day, and bye-bye. Marv at 11 o'clock. Is there one now? Or now, Chas v'sholom. 10:30.
What did you use to make this presentation?
Prezi.